Hello everybody, welcome to the studio. My name is Mel and I'm here to teach you how to paint. I'm super excited about today's painting. She's got me more excited than I've been in a while. Best friend, you can paint your own Picasso inspired sort of cubist style portrait, and I'm going to make it really simple. We're just going to break it down into bite-sized pieces. So before we get rolling, let me just give you an idea of what to expect today. I'm going to walk you through the painting one step at a time. So I'll point to the original one and talk a little bit about what we're going to work on, and then I'll tell you how to do it. I'll tell you what brush to use, what color to use. As you see, there are lots of colors to be mixed today. When we have to make a color, I'll give you the recipe and show you what you're aiming for. And then I'm going to demonstrate the step right here on my own canvas. Now, with the beauty of painting by video, you can pause at any time. You can even mute me if you're tired of listening to me, but you can pause and catch up, take your time. You can zoom in on YouTube even while the video is playing, so that's pretty fantastic. You can get a nice up-close tight view of some of the detail if you're looking for it. And just take your time with it, have some fun, pour yourself a drink, get a snack. I don't want you getting hangry. And get yourself all set up. I'm going to walk through the materials that we're using today and show you what we've got. And then I'll give you a minute to get set up and we'll get rolling. All right, I'm using two paintbrushes today. I've got a big brush that's got a flat top right here. You can see that. And then I've got a smaller brush that's pointy. And you can use a flat small brush. You can use whatever you've got. But these are what I'm sending out in my kits. I've got a cup of water to rinse my paintbrushes in and an old wash rag, my paint rag, to dry them. You can always use a paper towel, that'll work. And I've got my paint palette here with all of the colors that you've got in your kit and that I'm using tonight. I've got a bright lemony yellow, some white, some black, some red, some blue, some green, and some metallic copper. And if you've painted at the paint studios, you may have gotten a paper plate filled with a lot of paint. And you really don't need that much. The more paint you use, the harder it is to contain and to manage. It's sort of like a tired toddler at Target at nap time. Nobody needs that nonsense. I promise this will be more than enough. I'm also using plastic as my palette surface. A lot of times you use paper plates. I recommend using an old plastic plate or an old Tupperware lid. You know, there's always one laying around that doesn't have a friend. So a Tupperware lid works great because you can just throw it in the washing machine or throw it out. Whatever you want to do. Dishwasher, not washing machine. You know what I meant. Okay, so just one more time. Yellow, white, black, red, blue, green, and some copper. A small brush, a big brush. Get yourself set up. You're also going to need a pencil so that you can sketch out the shape of your figure. And I'll see you in a few minutes. Get set up. All right, let's do it. Let's zoom in. There we go. Ooh. Okay, now we've got a good view. Now, I have actually already sketched my lady out here in pencil, but you can't see it on the camera. So I am going to go over my lines in Sharpie as I explain them to you. But I want you to understand me when I tell you, do not sketch this out in Sharpie. Sketch it out in pencil. I'm including a black paint pen in your kit that you can use to go over your final lines, or you can use your favorite Sharpie, but you don't want to put your black lines on until we've painted this piece. I'm only doing this for demonstration purposes. These things are being done by a professional. Do not attempt them at home. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about our gal here. First of all, she's got long, sort of rainbowy hair, which I think is great for Pride, which just started this month. She's got 4 different skin tones. I broke the face up into 4 quadrants, just to make it, you know, they can contrast with one another. You can see her mouth is a rose. Making the nose is actually going to be really easy. We'll just make the shape of a question mark. We only have 1 eyeball and 1 closed. When we do things sort of abstract to begin with, then they're intentionally artistic, and we don't really have to struggle with the fact that our self-portrait doesn't look like us. We're intentionally skewing it. And just lean into that, embrace it. It's really freeing because when we try to do portraits and make them photorealistic or even expressionist and kind of looking realistic, that's a lot of pressure. So by leaning into this really cubism, abstract nature, Picasso-inspired self-portrait, you can really take a lot of freedom and run with it. So I really encourage you to just take a good swig of your drink and really embrace it. Okay, so I talked a little bit about those features. You can have curly hair, you can have short hair, you can have a wide face, you can have a square chin. It's entirely up to you. But what I want to show you first is how to just build the basic structure of the face, and then you can go from there. So the first thing I like to do is to just start off with this line that is going to create our nose. And you want to start just slightly off center. So here is the dead center. We want to start slightly off center to the left or the right and bring a line down about 4 inches to almost halfway from the top and the bottom, and then give it a curve. Now, if you want a rounder nose, you can always round that out. If you want it smaller, you can make it a little smaller. I like to create the nostril by just creating a question mark without the dot. And there, all of a sudden, I have what looks like a nose, or sort of like a nose. Now, the next thing we can do is just come along and create the left edge of the face. So I come down and then curve in and down to the chin. So it's one parenthesis with a curve and another. Or you can make one big long curved line. You can make it more angular if you want really narrow cut sharp features. Baby, it's your face. Do whatever you want to it. No one is here to judge you. We are here to encourage it and cheer you on. Lean into it. Enjoy it. All right, so we've got that left edge of the face. Now I'm going to come around and do the right. And again, this is a really abstract shape. I'm really just letting that hair swoop over it. But she's got like some big wide cheekbones there, doesn't she? So we've got our nose and the outline to our face. And what I want to do now is just continue dividing that face, the left and right side, by coming below the flower and creating that chin. So we're dividing our face, the left side from the right side. Don't worry about the mouth right now. Left from right by our nose, and then continuing that with the chin underneath. So now we've got left, we've got right, we've got nose. We need to create these lines somewhere about halfway between the top and bottom of the face so that we'll end up with 4 different quadrants. And you can put them in wherever you want. I'm going to just come on the left side, the little bit of a curved line, and here on the right, doing another curved line, except it's kind of curving the opposite direction. I'm leaning in and embracing that wackiness. I just want to bring down that other part of the nose right here to just sort of finish that shape off. So remember, you can pause me at any time you need to. You can rewind, you can stop, go refill your drink, and come back and continue. Take your time with this. I'm going to move on to the hair because I like to put that in and then I'll come in and finish up those facial features. Now I'm doing the long and wavy on this one. So I just start creating these sort of wavy lines with the hair swooping over. And they run sort of alongside each other, but they certainly don't need to be symmetrical or parallel. If you want curly hair, you can always divide it up differently. Let me give you an example here. Let's just put out a quick little face here. Okay, so we're divided left, right, top, bottom. And now if you wanted curly hair, you could come in with those sort of shapes. That would be fun with spirals. And then maybe make some more big loops around those. That gives you lots of options. If you wanted to do straight hair, I'll do some down here. You could always just bring your sections out in a similar fashion to this, but make them more angular with less curve. Take your time with it. Use that newsprint that came in your kit. You can always use that to just sort of practice some sketches on. But use some pencil on your canvas. Just light lines that you'll be able to see, because we're basically going to paint in sections now. It'll be very much basically like coloring, to be honest with you. It'll be pretty simple. Now I am going to add an eye. It's just going to be a curved line. And then I'm going to just put a few lashes there for effect. And I want to talk about the right eye. Now, the first thing I like to do is put in my eyebrow. And you can shape your eyebrow however you like. But I cheat and only do that bottom edge. Because the top one, the hair, is just sort of wisping over. And I don't have to worry about making it perfect. And on the left side, I bring the hair down far enough that I only have to do one eyebrow. So I don't have to worry about them matching. Now for the eyeball itself, I'm going to do a circle. And you want it to be a little more than the center third of your eyebrow. That's how you'll size it in. And then I just come in, leave a little gap, and follow that line along. So this will be the pupil, and this will be whatever color you want the iris to be. And of course, she needs some lashes. Now those will actually add in with black paint pen at the end. Again, I'm just adding them here so that you can see what's going on. So we've got our face, we've got our hair, we've got our eyes, and now we just need our mouth. So if you need to pause, I'm going to continue so you can always just come right back and catch up. Now for our flower, we've got a rough circle is really where I start. And I make two curved lines. There's one curved line like a half circle, then I offset and go the opposite direction. And that's going to be the center of my flower. They just basically hook into each other. And then to continue, I just start making parentheses coming around and just setting them off from the other ones. So one is always offset of the other just a little bit. And you can just come out with like 2 rows or so until you're happy with the size of your mouth. So at this point, again, one last encouragement to really just take your time with it. Have a sip, come back if you need to, take a little break. You want to get this sketched out, but don't go too far down the rabbit hole. Remember, we want it to look wonky. So lean into that, embrace the wonkiness, and when you're ready, come back and we'll start working on the skin. All right, I'll see you in a few minutes. Good luck. You've got this. You've got this. I believe in you. All right, I'll see you in a few minutes. All right, so hopefully we're all sketched in. We're going to start working on our skin tone for our facial features, for our skin. So we've got different shades of pink and copper here, and everyone's going to have different skin tones. And you can adjust them darker or lighter. Now the first thing that I want to show you is that I use copper as the base for my skin tones. And I can add white, I can add black, I can add red. But I'm never going to add both white and black. We can add black and red, we can add red and white. But we don't want gray to mix with our copper, because then you get sort of a sickly skin tone. So I'm going to start with one. I'm just going to use equal parts of copper. Got that big brush just taking a scoop. You can see there, that's about the size of a bean. And then I'm going to come over and get some white, equal amount, put it next to it, and give it a swirl. And we're going to end up with a fairly light medium tone. A fairly light medium tone, that makes sense, right? That's a pretty medium skin tone. And we can take this and put it in wherever we like. I'm going to do this bottom right quadrant here of my face. And I'm just painting it in. You can see I'm getting up close to the edge of those lines. And then when I get there, I turn the brush. You can see I sweep this way. I turn it to use that skinny side parallel to the line. And I can pull, and that gives me a really nice clean edge. And I'm going to end up covering these lines. That's okay. I'm going to come back and put them in later. And I like to use a longer sweeping stroke once my paint is applied. That way it pulls it nice and clean and even. Just right along. Coming right up to the edge of that chin line and just filling it in. Now, if you can see your brush strokes, you're going to want to let this layer dry and come back in and probably add a second coat. But what we're not going to do, let me repeat, what we're not going to do is put that paint on super thick, because then it's going to take forever to dry, and frankly, it's still going to look kind of shitty. When it's dry, you're still going to have those brush strokes going through it. So just get a nice even coat, let it dry. You can come back and put another one on it. But you can see I didn't even use half of that paint. So I can actually move on to my next skin tone. So go ahead and pause, click play when you're ready, and I will be ready to go. All right, so for the second skin tone, I want it to be a little bit rosy, kind of pink. I've got this half and half mix that I used first left. So I'm just going to grab a little bit of red and stir that in. And I'm going to end up with a color pretty somewhere between bubblegum and Pepto-Bismol. And I'm going to take that shade and fill in this lower left side. Now you can put it up top, you can put it to the right, you can put it wherever you like. You can make an entirely different skin tone if you want. I'm doing these sort of light skin tones on the bottom, and then I'm going to show darker skin tones on the top. And remember, once these are dry, we can always paint over them. So if you change your mind and you decide you want to mix up your skin palette a little bit, you can. You're not going to be married to any one decision. And my air conditioner just kicked on. I really apologize, but it's a steamy thunderstorm kind of night here, so. All right. Now you can see I've overlapped my line there. That's okay. I can always clean that up later. I just want to get a nice even tone here. So I've got equal parts of copper and white on the right, and then I added a dab of pink to red of what was left to get this shade of pink. But do you, boo, go for whatever skin tones you want. Any color. You could even make them really bright, bold primary colors. Entirely up to you. All right, you know what I'm going to say. Hit the pause button and come back when you're ready. All right, I'll see you in a second. Okay, we're going to do skin tone number 3 out of 4. Oop, that's not a 3 out of 4. Okay, here we go. First thing, give your brush a rinse. You want to sweep the bottom of that cup, give it a gentle bounce until those bristles wiggle around and let go of all that paint. And then just drag those bristles right across the edge of that cup, sort of like when you scrape the frosting spatula on the side of the bowl. And then you can dry it off on your paper towel. Now, as promised, I'm going to show how to do a darker version of what we did down below. So I'm going to take a scoop of copper, again about the size of a bean, drop that off to mix it, and this time I'm going to get the tiniest little dip in black, just a tiny bit, and I'm going to swirl that into my copper, and it's going to turn into this deep, shiny, shimmery brown. Now if you want to take it even darker, you can come back and add little bits more of that black, but bring it up slowly. So I'm going to use this color on the top right quadrant here and just paint that right in. I am going over some of those lines. Sometimes if your paint's not flowing smoothly, I just dip the very tip of my bristles in some water, and then you'll find that it glides just a little bit more smoothly. Coming around the edge of that eye, get up to that forehead, around the eyebrow. This painting really is a joy for me because I don't have to worry about doing a lot of shading with highlight and low light or shadow. It's really, once we decide, oh, the air's off again, thank goodness. Once we decide on the shape, it's just a matter of filling in sections. And that's super relaxing. So this painting, we get the most stressful part out in the first 15 minutes. It's that sketch. After that, it's paint by numbers, except you decide the number. Now I can still see my lines. And if you're worried about that, once the paint dries, you should still be able to see your pencil lines. If not, once it's dry, you can just take a moment and re-sketch them with your pencil before we put the black paint pen on. But we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. I'm just saying, if you're starting to cover that line up, do not panic. All is well. I've got you. All right. Let's just make sure I've got some good coverage on here. And you can see I'm using a longer sweeping stroke, trying to follow the shape of these curves so that everything stays nice and consistent and smooth. All right. There we go. So get yourself to this point, and then we are going to work on our fourth and final quadrant of our face, over here on the top left. So come on back when you're ready, I'll be here. Okay, our final section here. I still have just a tiny bit of that copper and black mix. So I'm just going to grab about a pea-sized amount of copper to add to it, and then a dip in the red. So I'm going to end up with this really shimmery, almost yummy burgundy kind of color. Okay. And then it's not even a burgundy, it's almost an orange. It's really pretty though, I like it. And every time you mix like this, you're going to end up with a slightly different color. So just embrace it. Go with it. We're intentionally making her face 4 different shades. It's not like you've got to go to Ulta and swatch a foundation and a concealer. You can just come right along and make whatever skin tones you want. All about what you want to do. All right. Okay. It's that simple. Now, I do paint faster than you. That's my job. I'm a professional. So take your time. Relax. Enjoy yourself. and come back and see me. We're going to start on the hair next. So, I'll see you in just a few minutes. Okay, bye. Okay, we are back and we are going to work on that hair. So I'm going to remind you again before we get there, you can do whatever you want with this. I'm going to teach you a basic technique, which is where we put down a base color. We can lighten it up a little bit and darken it up a little bit to just create that beautiful, luscious shading that I think goes so well in this hair. So our face is still drying, so I'm not going to worry about that. But I'm going to start right off up here in the top right corner and just show you this basic sort of blending that I've been talking about. And I'm going to start, I've cleaned my brush, my big brush. I've got some red all by itself. And I'm going to come in and fill in this section of the hair. And I'm following that shape so that my brush strokes help create that length of the hair, of that segment. If you're doing curly hair, you might want to use a curly stroke to add some more texture. Oh, you could, if you wanted to do all shades of brown, you could do that, but I really love how bright and vibrant and colorful this gal is. She just makes it a joy for me. All right. So now that I think I've got a pretty good coverage, or pretty good layer, I'm just going to do a few strokes from end to end and just smooth that out. Just even out that paint, try to get rid of those little lumps. And now I've got a nice little even coat going there. Let's see. I've got another section here that I want to paint red. So I'm just going to go ahead and come in and do that. I'm going to try to do all of the sections of hair that are going to be the same color at once. So we'll do our whole base color here, which is red, on all three. We want to work faster than our paint dries, because we want to come back and do just a little bit of highlight and shadow, and it's going to be necessary for our paint to still be wet. So if you need to do one section at a time, then do that. But I'm going to do these two and probably this bang over here, although I think I'm going to make that one orange, so I'll just do these two. All right. There we go. Now I have to stick to my lines pretty much because I've done them in marker. You've done yours in pencil, so nobody's going to know if you change the shape of a curl or a piece of hair. Nobody's going to know. But how are they going to know? No one's going to know. If you've been watching TikTok all pandemic, you know. All right. So once our base color is in, whether it's red, whether it's blue, whether it's green, it's all going to be the same. I'm going to clean out my brush. And I'm going to grab a lighter color to make a little bit of highlight. So in this case, you can get white, but I've got a little bit of this pink from the skin left over, and that's lighter than the red. So that's what I'm going to use. I don't want to waste it. And I'm just going to pick a section and follow that curve. Do you see how it's really bold and bright at the top? And then it lightens up. Another little sweep over it. You can add as much as you like, but a few little streaks in there, that's all good stuff. So we're just adding the highlight or the light right now. So I'm going to bring one down to this longer section, and I drop off that little bit of color, and then I just smooth it out. Just smooth it out. Now the more you smooth, the more likely it is to just become one new color. So you have to have a little bit of discipline there. Okay, so we've got our base color, the red, and then I added that little bit of highlight with some pink. And now I'm going to make a little bit of shadow. And to do that, I'm going to take just a little bit of red, my base color, and add a tiny, tiny speck of black so that I end up with a burgundy. And I can use that to create some shadow. I want to have 3 tones in each of these pieces. A light, a medium, and a dark. So our base tone, the red, is the medium. Adding that pink to it gave us that little bit of highlight. And then there, that maroon gave us that little bit of shadow. So let's come that up here to the bang and do that. Add that little bit of maroon. And remember, you want to work faster than your paint dries. There we go. And I'm not going to fiddle with that too much more, because the drama of this piece really comes from these bold pieces of color and then those lines that are very confident and clear. So we don't need to muck with, a lot of shading. I just want to create a little bit of light and a little bit of shadow to just bring a lot of, some oomph to it. Give it some intensity. All right, so take your time. Get those in. I'm going to continue. I'm going to clean out my brush. You can pause, come back, and I'm going to keep on moving. So I'll see you in a few minutes. All right, my big brush is clean, and I'm going to move on to this yellow section up here in the top right. You can make yours whatever color you want, but I'm going to do yellow up here and then down on the bottom left, sort of in opposing corners. So I'm going to pick up the very tiniest bit of white on the tip of my bristles. And then I'm going to come over and grab some yellow. And double dipping is okay. Nobody cares. Let's come down here to this lower corner. That'll give this a minute to dry. And just like before, this is our base color. So we want to fill in our section with this base color. And have it follow that movement of the section of hair, whether it's curly or whether it is long and wavy or even straight. Now we have the white in with the yellow just because that yellow is a super translucent color. And a little bit of white in there is going to do a couple of things. It'll give it some opacity so it holds up to that canvas. And it just softens that really bright tone of the yellow. So I've got my base yellow here, and then I'm going to come up to this top corner and add it as well. Now remember, the white isn't really the highlight yet. It's just to give us a little more oomph to that yellow. All right. So we've got our yellow in both sections. And now we can add our highlight, which in this case, I'm just going to grab a little bit of white and pull that along, pick an edge, and stick with it. Whoops, I got into a little bit of that red. So I'm just going to go ahead and let that blend in a little bit, overlap. I guess that's going to be my shadow. A little bit of streak through there. Now, if you're nervous about that happening, blow dry each section. You just take your blow dryer, hit it with the blow dryer, and then you don't have to worry about that happening. But I'm using orange for those sections, so I'm okay with it. I'm just going to come in with a little more white over here and lighten up a little bit of it. Just a few little streaks with that white. Maybe that needs a little more bold yellow. There we go. Got kind of soft. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is make a little bit of orange, but I don't want to rush you. So base color is the yellow with just a touch of white to give it a little bit more opacity. And then you can streak a little bit of white through there for highlight. And when you're ready, take a little smidge of yellow add a tinier smidge of red, and you'll get orange. And we can use the orange for the shadow of our yellow. So while that yellow is still wet, just going to apply a little swoosh there. Let some of those lines overlap of those swooshes. See how I come down, let it overlap. And then just give it a little light whisk, let it streak its way out or blend. So you can have really bold lines or you can have a smooth little ombre. That's up to you. I am going to fix this little section of red here because I got some white on it. Okay. So I've got yellow with orange and yellow with orange. We've got 3 tones, light, medium, dark, light, medium, dark. And I'm going to come over with that orange that's left and fill in this top left bang. I may need to make just a little bit more. A little bit of yellow, tiny, tiny dab of red. That red is super spicy, so just a little bit of it. And remember, if you're doing, all one color, you could do this all in shades of blue. You could do it all in shades of green or purple or whatever you want, neutrals. You could really have some fun with this piece. So don't be afraid to try something. What's the worst thing that can happen? You don't like it, so then you blow dry it and you paint over it. It's not like you painted your entire living room the wrong color choice. It's just a small section on a piece of canvas. That's easy enough to fix. Shit happens, just paint over it. All right. There we go. Now, we have our base tone, which is this orange. And then we're going to use a light tone and a dark tone. So I'm going to clean my brush real quick. And I'm just going to use a little bit of yellow with a tiny little bit of white. And that's going to be my light. So just a couple of quick streaks through there. Don't want to fuss with it too much. You can get a few little bright highlights in there. And then I can just add a little bit of red to my orange tone to just bring it down a little bit, or even a little bit of copper with that. That's fun. Let's grab a little copper. So I've got orange with a little extra red and a little bit of copper. And now I have a little bit of shadow in there. So we have light, medium, and dark, 3 tones. Take your time. Don't feel rushed because I'm faster than you. It's not a race. It's not a race. Take your time. Just coming in, adding a little bit of lightness here. A few little streaks. But the more I mess with it, the more it's going to become one tone. So I'm just going to stop and clean off my brush. Now you can see I have more sections of hair here in this version than I do in the original. And that's okay. You can have as few or as many as you want. I am going to show you how to make this turquoise next. So when you're ready, come on back. We'll be here. Making some turquoise. Okay. So for turquoise, we're going to take a small pea-sized amount of blue, a pea-sized amount of green, and then I also take a pea-sized amount of white and stir those together. Now you can adjust this color by adding more white, more blue, or more green to your liking. I'm going to use this as my base. So I'm going to come in and fill in this section of hair. Now, if any of your strands or your sections of hair here get really small, I have a couple of pieces of advice. One, if you need to, switch to the smaller brush. But two, don't make really small sections of hair. Then you have to get fussy with small spaces, and it's just easier to keep them a little bit bigger. But if you need to, if that spot's small, then go ahead and switch to your small brush. I like to just turn this guy sideways and use the skinny edge. And by this guy, I mean I'm still using the big brush. I'm just filling in this section of hair. Remember, one part at a time. Literally. Go easy when you get close. If this other color is still wet, you can end up getting things a little dirty, a little muddy. So you can also blow dry in between each section. That just makes you a little more confident that you're not going to have any smearing. Do what you need to make yourself comfortable for this to work for you. All right, we've got one section here. And I think I'm going to do this very top corner because I just have a tiny bit of this base color left. And it's just enough for this little section. All right, so that's my base color for these turquoise sections. And I'm just going to rinse this brush out real quick. Now I can come in and add my light. So for my light, I'm just going to take a tiny bit of white and streak that through. And let it blend, giving me that little bit of highlight I'm looking for. Not a lot, just a little. Just a little bit of lightness there. There we go. Then we're going to come in and use blue to create the darker part. So wipe off your brush, grab a little bit of blue, and come along that other edge to add in that shadow. I like to use it against the face part here because it really creates a little bit more shadow. Just a little bit more drama. Take your time. There's no rush. You're not being timed. You're not on a deadline. Just want to make that nice and pretty. A little bit more up here too. There we go. Okay, so we just have a few sections left. I think I'm going to mix up. First I'm going to clean my brush, and then I think I'm going to make some purple. So for purple, you want to use equal parts of red and blue. So a scoop of red, pea-size amount, scoop of blue, and then I'm going to use an equal amount of white. And I'm going to end up, ooh, this is almost periwinkle. This one's really blue heavy. But I think I'm okay, but I think I'm going to add a little more red to it. You can adjust this. More red, more blue, more white. Entirely up to you. Alright, I've got some purple there. And I'm going to come up here, fill this guy in. So for this purple one, you can use red for your dark tone to it. You can use blue. We're going to use white for the light. But that's the fun thing about a color like turquoise or purple. With the turquoise, you can use blue or green to create your shadow. With the purple, you could use red or blue. It's entirely up to you. So base coat down. Let's find another spot to put that. I'll put it over here. Trying to place my colors where my paint will go the furthest. There we go. I think I got it. I think I did it. Had just enough. You could always make more, but I'm a lazy painter and I don't want to make more. All right. There we go. So we've got the base tone in. Gonna clean my brush and come in and start adding some shadow. Excuse me, some light. So I'm gonna start with the white, clean dry brush, little bit of white. Pick one side of the section and streak a little highlight through it. Just a little. Don't need to go too crazy. There we go. That's all you need. Little streaks. Then wipe your brush off and pick your shadow color. In this case, I'm using blue. So the opposite side of the segment, where we put the light, we're going to put the shadow. You can see it really just adds a lot. It's a pretty simple technique, but it's very effective. There we go. So much bright, vibrant color for very little effort. All right, we are almost done here. I think I'm going to do some green next. And I've got some green all by itself that I'm just going to use for the base. Just a little bit of green. Fill in that section. And then we can use yellow or white for the highlight. And then I'm going to make a darker version of green with some black to use as the shadow. Kind of like we did with the red. I don't ever want to bring black in on its own to add as the shadow because too many things can go wrong there. My hand goes crazy. That can be really hard to fix. So a little bit of green there, and we'll do some here. And then I'll show you how to add those shadows in. This got a little nutty here. Sorry, I get quiet. I was concentrating. I was really concentrating there for a moment. Alright, so what I'm going to do is clean off my brush, get all that heavy dark green out of there, and grab a little bit of yellow. And my yellow is going to serve as my lightness and my highlight. And I'm going to streak that through just like we did the white. Streak some of that yellow through. There we go. Doesn't have to be a lot. Just enough to notice. Okay. And then, as I said, I'm going to make a little bit of a darker green. Just grab a little tiny dot of green, add the tiniest speck of black. So that you get a darker green. Can you see the difference between those two now? There we go. So we've got the darker color and the base color. So here's my darker one. Bring that along and just shade that in. Just like with all the other colors, it does what it's supposed to. Gives us that shadow, which is what we want. There we go. That's all we need right there. Okay, so take your time finishing up your hair. I am going to come in, I've got a little section here. I'm going to paint that a skin tone. I've got a little bit left. So if you find yourself in that spot, I'm going to make that into her neck. So let me actually bring some of that hair down over it so I have less to do. There we go. And then I can just paint that little section in a different skin tone. So pick whatever color you want, keep working on your hair, and when everybody is ready, come back and we'll start working on our eye and our mouth. So just take your time with that hair, but remember, don't overblend. When you overblend, everything starts to become the same color, and it really loses, you know, all of that lusciousness that we're working to put into it. So give yourselves a few minutes to finish up, and I'll see you right back here. We'll get started on the eye and the mouth. All right, so hopefully you didn't make yourself too crazy trying to get all that hair in, but I'm pretty happy with mine. You can see all those sections where things get light and dark. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense right now. Once we get the eye and the mouth in, and then we come in and do our line work, it will all be entirely different. I promise you. So let's pick out a color for the eye. I'm going to do blue. So I'm going to grab my smaller brush and some blue. You can use whatever color you want. And I'm going to paint in the iris of the eye. And I'm going to take my time. I want to make sure that I get nice clean edges here. And I want this to be fairly even. So in other words, I don't want one part to be really wide and then another part to get really narrow. That would just be kind of weird. And I'm at the point where I'm going to have plenty of opportunity to cover things up. So I'm just trying to take my time. Keep it fairly consistent and even as I work my way around. And that's it. I'm going to clean off my brush, and then I'm going to paint in the pupil and the eyebrow with some black. So clean, dry brush. And you can use your bigger one for this. I just have this one in my hand, so I'm not going to switch it out. Plus, then I've just got a little bit more control over what I'm doing. Paint in the eye. Now, a solid black eyeball pupil is freaky when it's looking back at you. It looks very vacant. So you gotta wait, and we'll put that little highlight on it. And once we put that highlight on it, everything changes. So let's just get that filled in, as well as our eyebrow. Get those filled in, and then when you're ready, we'll work on the rose for the mouth. So I'll see you back here in just a couple, okay? All right. All right, we're back. I mean, it's kind of freaky deaky because we have one eye and this weird open mouth, but she's starting to be pretty cool. So I'm pretty excited about it. I don't know about you. I want to make a dark, deep burgundy for my rose here for the mouth. So I'm going to use a scoop of red with some black. And I had some black in my brush from the eyebrow. So I just grabbed that scoop of red. Kind of like when we made our dark tone here for the hair. That's what we're going for. Red and black. Get a nice, deep burgundy. And then I come in and I just start painting from the outside in, and I follow those lines for my curves. Oh, air's coming back on, so I'm going to start talking louder. And then I just continue to create these parentheses or curved lines and let them overlap as I work my way toward the center. I'm going to come back in and put in all of those lines. And when my paint dries, I should be able to see them through there. I can add a little highlight. Got a little smidge of this pink left. So I can come in and add a little bit if you like. It's entirely up to you how you do this. I like to add a little highlight. Just break up the flatness and monotony of that dark purple all by itself. So I just pick up those little bits of leftover skin tone or pink, create these sort of overlapping strokes. And then once I put in those black lines, later it all makes a little more sense. Maybe make the center a little bit darker. Okay, so there's our mouth. We're pretty much there at this point. Really, all we have left to do is our paint work. Our fine lines. I think this is a little dark. I don't know how I feel about that. This is the point of the painting where I really suggest that everyone get up and take a little break. Walk away, come back to it in, I don't know, 10, 20 minutes. We have some detail work left to do, but we're really on the home stretch now. But a little break would be good for you. Then you can come back and make any other decisions you've got to make about changing any colors, anything you want to correct. Just take your time with it. So I'm going to hit the pause button. I'm going to blow dry my painting, and when I come back, I'm going to show you how to use the black paint pen to create all of our sharp lines. So I'll see you in just a few minutes. We're almost there. Hang in there. All right, we are down to the very last little bits. So you've got a paint pen that came in your kit. And what I want you to do is with your finger on the lid, make sure you're holding it so that it stays on, shake it. And as you shake it, you'll hear a little bead or ball bearing start to move around in there, sort of like with nail polish. And the more you shake it, the more you'll be able to hear that bead. Because this stuff sits around and gets kind of thick. And so you're really sometimes tapping it. There we go. Now you can hear it. It's really moving around in there. I want that bead moving freely inside that paint reservoir. Stir everything up really nice. Now, when you open your paint marker, it's not going to be black. It's going to be this neutral felt color. So with your lid off, I want you to put it down on a surface like a piece of paper and push and hold. And you have to hold it for a long time, close to a minute. And it's very tempting to pick up and look. Don't. Okay, you can a little. Every once in a while I look. Don't shake it without the lid on it. You don't need to go back to shaking it. Really at this point, it's just about patience. And you can see that paint is starting to move its way down that felt tip. And now I got a good line right there, just like a marker. Push it and get that paint flowing nice and smoothly. Excellent. So for this step, I highly recommend that you take, oops, drop my lid. Take your canvas off the easel and go ahead and lay it flat on your table. I'm going to leave mine upright so that you can see what I'm doing as I'm working. I could re-rig the whole camera system, but I just don't feel like doing that tonight, so I'm going to do it vertical. Now, make sure your painting is completely dry. You do not want to use a wet paint pen on wet paint. It'll pretty much ruin it. I like to start at the top and work my way down. Essentially, pick which direction you're going. because you want to move away from what you've worked so you're not dragging your hand over wet paint. That's the other nice thing about laying it down, is then you can just sort of turn it whatever direction you want to make your life a little bit easier. But I'm just going to use it like a marker and come right over those sections and create those lines, defining and dividing my sections of hair. And I just take my time and pull that line. Just using it like a marker. We're just going over our lines. Take your time. All right, so I've got this top left section. I'm going to do the top right section of my hair. Paint pens don't work so well in this direction because gravity is my friend when it's flat. So you'll find I've got a few lines I've got to come back over, kind of even out a little bit, but that's okay. Made that line nice and thick and bold. And one more here on this section of the bang. There we go. Nice bold lines. That's what I'm looking for. Just sort of. I got a little wet paint on the end of my pen because I was not careful. And I'm just trying to wipe it off here on my paper plate. So that's the basic outlining for the hair. It's going to be the same down here below, but I want to come through and go over these lines on the face. So I'm thinking about which direction I'm working so that I don't have to pull my hand over wet paint. Few little curls or eyelashes in there, going over my dividing lines, just following the original ones I made. Ooh, I may need to turn this a little bit. There we go. Sometimes if I feel like it's just not working right, the way I'm trying to pull the line, I just turn the canvas. Makes it a little bit easier on me, and it comes out better. Just keep going over your lines. And do this together. And outline my eye here, the outer edge. And then again, I need those little eyelashes. As few or as many as you like. I'm going to save my rose for last. And just come along. And you can see I got a little wonky there. Just take my time, come back over it. Do a little correction there if you need to. Just keep pulling. Whoop. I have no idea where I lost you on that last one, but I'm just continuing to outline everything with my black paint pen. Just going over my lines, just like a coloring book. Just taking a marker and outlining it. So take your time with this. Go ahead and give me a pause when you're ready to do the rose. Come back and see me. All right, I'm gonna let you do this part. I'm just outlining. So when you're ready to do the mouth, come back and see me. For the rest of this, it's all pretty obvious. Just go right around the edge of those lines. All right, so I'll see you in just a couple minutes. All right. So all of my outlining is done. I outlined the eye, did the lashes, all of the quadrants of the face, and then the sections of the hair. I want to walk you through the mouth itself with that flower. So remember when we first drew it, we created those two curved lines, two parentheses that hook into each other. I'm going to do that same thing here, but I like to put them sort of on an angle in the center. And then I just start making parentheses and offsetting them from whatever one they were just next to. There's no perfect way to do this. There's no right or wrong way to do this. We just bring those curved lines right out to the edge. And now we have our mouth. You can connect them to make these petals if you want. At this point, I just start bringing them down and connecting them so that they look more like petals. But those curved lines work great on their own too. There's little connections. And that's it. I mean, that's really the end of it. You do need to sign your piece, and your paint pen is a great way to do that. I always recommend on the back writing the date so that you remember, you can see how far your painting has come and, what kind of progress you're making. I'm going to go ahead and take just a quick moment to peel my painter's tape off. I always love to do that because then it gives you a nice clean edge there. So satisfying. Got a couple little bits here where it bled, but that's okay. I can take some white paint and clean that up. All right, I've taken my tape off the edges. I just want to show you one final step, and that's the little dot in the eye. I'm going to use my small brush, get it nice and clean and dry. And I'm just going to get a little dip of white paint, and I'm going to make a little line with another little one. So two, one a little bigger than the other. And now my eye has some shape to it, some character. The more you mess with these, the bigger they're going to get. But that's it. That's the final step. So I hope that you had a good time creating Best Friend. I really want to see your versions of this because this is one of those paintings that you can do so much with. So please find Paint with Mel and Friends on Facebook. Come join our group where we cheer each other along and just have sort of a mutual admiration society for our painting friends. You can also find me on Instagram and TikTok, but send me some pictures of your pieces. I would love to see them. Anyway, I hope you had a good time. Great way to kill a couple hours. I'll see you next time. Pick out your next painting and be well. Be good to each other. Be good to yourselves. And have fun painting. I'll see you soon. Bye.